Hey, good evening, everybody. Welcome to this week's episode of Paranormal Lens. I'm Jamie Widener, and with my co-host Chad Thomas, as always.
Good
Uh,
evening.
yeah, hey Chad, what's going on?
Long week, but you're back from you were
Dude,
on
it's
location.
Tuesday. Wait a minute, it's
Oh,
Tuesday. You can't
I,
say that yet. Did you have a second Monday?
yeah.
Yeah,
We
I
had
did
meeting
too.
Monday, and then today was like just a lot of stuff within the first hour of work was just so much fun.
Yeah,
But I digress.
that's life. You know,
So
we do these things so we can afford to do the things we like to do,
this
right?
this is true. Yep.
So
So
it's necessary evil.
yep.
I had one of those days as well that just didn't seem like I could ever get away from the flow of things that kept coming. And, you're just looking for some buoyancy at some point to hold on to something, but it was all just heavy stuff. So, yay, we're here now, though.
We're
And
here,
it's time to talk about some fun stuff,
right?
right?
We had an investigation this weekend.
Yeah.
We were boobies. We had a full house. Um, it was an interesting night. It was. We walked in and we're like, tonight's a little odd. It feels odd in here. We're gonna. It'll be interesting, and it was. It was an older crowd, like
All right.
our age and above for the most part. There were a couple younger people. We had two people come in dressed as Ghostbusters from the from the movie.
Did you bring their packs?
They did not, but they were a couple staying upstairs, but they enjoyed themselves. They were there though. They late stayed out to the bitter end. Um, but we kept losing groups, and like I didn't have a session at the very end.
Hold on. Were you losing like
Losing as they were leaving and going,
literally or
no, no,
physically?
no,
Okay.
no. But it was a good time. I didn't have a session, so Alex and I got to investigate the ballroom for the third session, just the two of us and Missy. So we had a great time.
Oh, cool.
So
Very cool. All right.
so what about you? How was your week?
Well, I did a few things.
Uh huh.
Um, hopped a plane Sunday afternoon, and wound up in Florida for some reason. Um, and then from there, I went to this thing called Walt Disney World. I don't know if you've heard of
Oh,
it.
yeah.
It's new. It's new, um, and just trying
50
to figure out
some
where.
years new.
Yeah, it's not new. So we had the week at Disney with everybody. So it was cool. It was 80 something every day and 70 something 60s and 70s every night. So it was gorgeous.
Mm-hmm.
Nice to get away from that. I understand now why people snowbird.
Mm-hmm.
And I did a spring training run a couple years ago, probably 15 years ago, and it was gorgeous then in February. But this was really great weather, and everybody got along for the most part. A few of the usual meltdowns for the few usual reasons,
Yep.
but that's expected. So, but on the whole, kids travel well and get along. So yeah, it was good. I
You
I too did some investigating while I was there.
know,
So you aren't the only one out doing investigations this week. Um, I went to a place that's a known haunted location, and I got the opportunity to investigate it several times um, with a couple hundred of my closest friends. So,
well,
you know,
you got
it's
to do
quaint.
that, but you missed Mr. Dills last week. You
I
missed.
did, I did, but I didn't. I had a chance to catch up. So,
Well, that's good.
and I want to say thanks to Steve for filling in and Chris. I think if they stick with this, they might have a chance to be successful at what they're doing.
I think
These
maybe
guys are awesome.
they are. It was
You
a fun
know,
show, and it kept going on. And
if you yeah, and it always does, right? If you missed last week, go back and watch it. It's in our saved video history here, along with every other episode. There's now 50 of them to catch up on if you're new to us. But man, it was pretty cool, and new evidence that they revealed was pretty awesome too. So,
yep.
but thanks to Steve and Chris, and you guys rock, and I appreciate it. And now I know I can take a vacation anytime I want, and we're good. So.
So,
Um,
are you going to expense report any of this your vacation since you
If
did?
only I could, right?
Yeah.
No, no.
All
We'd
right.
have to have a budget in order to do that. Um,
There's that.
you know, so yeah.
All right.
Um,
Well,
but no, sadly no. Um, it's. I'm going to tell you this, and I think Disney does this to everybody. It takes you back to being a kid again. There were people everywhere wearing all kinds of cool things that are representative of the park they were in that day, or the favoritism of the characters they have, regardless of what park they were in. And it's just really cool to see that kind of let go moment that people have, regardless of their age. There were certainly lots of little girls wearing Disney princess dresses. There were certainly lots of adults wearing them as well, and women, I think. But whatever, it was just really neat, and it's kind of a nice change of pace from the hectic lives we all have all the time, where we're on and going, and barely breathing at the end of the day and crashing to bed. So I was very happy to be tired at the end of the night from just being out having fun for once. So enough about that. Let's talk about the mansion itself, right? That's really why we're here. So the first slide, please. So the backstory here. Way back in 1957, Walt Disney himself approached Imagineer Raleigh Crump, and that's a name that you will never hear again, right? Raleigh Crump. It sounds like something that somebody who should be like the golf pro at a club somewhere. Or maybe he is. Who knows?
Maybe.
The thing about Raleigh was he was asked to create for Walt a museum of the weird attraction, and which was something that Walt had dreamed of for a while. That he was trying to figure out how to get out of his head and onto something physical at Walt Disneyland, or Disneyland in California, which was the first park.
Right.
This idea though was set aside as the kind of like everything does. You plop an idea on the table, you play with it a little bit, all of a sudden it starts to become something more. And it really turned out that they were looking to figure out how to do a haunted house instead of a museum, an oddities museum. And Crump was chosen because he was a huge fan of the scary movies of the day, and he actually used them as inspiration for a lot of the design elements inside the house, as well as some sketch work that he had done in kind of the doodling stuff that you would do in idle time. Go to the next slide. This is Raleigh and Walt in the kind of the early stages of things. It says back in the 50s, so no color, of course, and Walt was wearing a suit and tie. So next slide. Going back to the sketch work. So this wallpaper is all through the house, and it is interesting because it actually, if you look at the larger facial kind of look, actually what you're really seeing is a drawing of a chandelier that Raleigh came up with, and it kind of morphed into this design. And it's interesting because this was back in the 50s, early 60s, and it's still in the house today, in the mansion today. So it's held the test of time. And whoever designed it has made some really good wallpaper, because that stuff falls down after a few years, right? One every house I've ever had. So the exterior of the Disneyland mansion was completed in 1963. This is California, of course. However, the interior remained untouched as Disney Imagineers were pressed into action on other topics centered around the 1964-1965 World's Fair in New York City. So this left guests to wonder what's going on here. Next slide. The sign was posted, and there's a clue. Obviously it says Haunted Mansion, which is the first time it's truly been presented to the public. It says, "Notice all ghosts and restless spirits. Post-lifetime leases are now available in this haunted mansion. For reservations, send resume of past experience to Ghost Relations Department, Disneyland. Please do not apply in person." They got a lot of applicants. So it worked. Next slide. Once attention returned from the World's Fair back to the Haunted Mansion, Yale Gracie, the gentleman shown here, the live person shown here, joined the team, and he and Raleigh assumed the task of filling the house with spooks and frights, and many of which still roam the halls today. Crump and Gracie went about building a team of other designers and technicians to bring some known and new technologies into play. Next slide, please. There's a few of the things they did that were unique. First of all, they created the Doom buggies, Doom, D-O-O-M, that will be what's used to ride through the home. And that is a picture from 1960. That is those bad boys are still in play today. Now, not exactly the same ones. They've been renovated, upgraded, and all the good stuff. They now have sound in the headrests and everything, but the design is essentially the same as it was from back in the original state. And they also utilize in the right-hand picture an old theater technique known as Pepper's Ghost, which is an illusion that uses light, glass, and mirrors in just the right angles to make ghosts appear to float through the various parts of the ballroom, which you ride above on a balcony and look down into. We'll have a little bit more on that later, but that's a kind of a timeless thing that used to be on stage technique all the time back in the late 1800s, early 1900s, and they brought it back. Next slide.
So just saying the Doom buggies, Jamie.
Yeah,
that was the first time they were used, but they are a staple in all sorts of things like Hershey's Chocolate World, things like that. That rotating buggy.
Yep. The car element is, and even if you go a little forward, and obviously, the technology has advanced extraordinarily through the years, but even the new Guardians of the Galaxy ride at Epcot utilizes the same kind of spinning car technique, and it's got a lot more flash in it now. But it's pretty much the basic element still there.
Right.
And credit to these guys, Disney Magic.
Right.
So I'm going to hold here for a second on this slide, but Walt Disney himself was personally involved in most of the design and plans up until his death in 1963. Walt passed before the final plans were set, and it left the Imagineers without a clear direction, or of if the attraction should be serious or should be whimsical. So in the end, it was determined it should be a mixture of both. Spooky and silly would be a successful venture. And since Walt did not return from the grave to guide them, I think that they got it right. Or maybe that could be because he's cryogenically frozen somewhere underneath Disney somewhere, right? You heard that rumor?
I have.
Yeah. So maybe. In a brief early design concept, the Haunted Mansion was a water ride where guests would float through the ruins of an old plantation house partially submerged in a Louisiana bayou. Oh, yeah. I would be in on that all day long. That sounds really fun. And then the Haunted Mansion is located in Disneyland at Disneyland in New Orleans Square, at Walt Disney World in Liberty Square, at Tokyo Disneyland in Fantasyland there, in Disneyland Paris in Frontierland, and at Disneyland Hong Kong in a place called Mystic Point. Now, it's not the only ride to be in all these different places. There are other things. However, it is the only one that is in uniquely different lands in each of the parks that it belongs in. So they never really settled on it being one exact thing, which is kind of cool. And each house has its own uniqueness to it.
Right.
And Disneyland was the first location to feature the mansion with Walt Disney World. And then following 2 years later, Disneyland was first and then Walt Disney World was second. Both houses, though, were designed at the same time so that there was some continuity between them. Well, not the only attraction. I'm sorry, I already said this. The mansion cost $7 million to build in 1959. So that equals to about $45 million today. It's a lot of money, right, for a ride. Although now, the new rides that are out there are way more. And the house was originally inspired by a property in Baltimore called the Shipley Lydecker House, Victorian area mansion. That has this foreboding, ominous kind of old haunted house look to it. All right. So while this is the Haunted Mansions in all these different places and all these different parks, let's focus on Walt Disney World because that's what I know and that's where I was. So here we're located in the Magic Kingdom and within Liberty Square. And right off the front door of the mansion is the steamboat, the Twain Steamboat. And right around the corner from it is the Hall of Presidents. Just up the road a little bit, up the hill a bit more is you get out of that and you get into like It's a Small World and Peter Pan and all the the cool kid rides. So it's it's nestled in a little bit and it doesn't look it looks like it's sitting up on a hill and it kind of is, but you don't see it right away until you come around a bend because of where the steamboat is set up and down a hill where you're coming out of the other area. So it's tucked in, it's nestled a little bit, which gives it somewhat of a foreboding appearance. So the house itself is believed to have been owned by a gentleman named Master Gracie, as in Yale Gracie, the Imagineer who helped bring the mansion to life. And there is an aging portrait of the master himself above the fireplace when you first entered the mansion. Let's play that first video. This will be a little quick one.
When ghosts are present, practicing their terror with ghoulish delight.
What we're seeing here is the young man in the original part of the portrait is aging rapidly. So, and going from dark hair, young features to balding and hollow face in about 8 seconds, which is to set the precedent for what you're supposed to see the rest of the way through. And right about this time too, you're in the parlor, so you're not really in the ride yet. This is kind of like the staging area right outside of the rest of where you go. But you'll start to hear that voice over, which is the ghost host, whose booming voice tells the tale of the mansion throughout the ride. Next, we enter the stretching room where 4 portraits are hung of past owners. As we watch the portraits stretch to show a dire predicament where each is likely showing their doom. The ghost host shares that there are now no doors nor windows, and there's no way to escape except for his way. And then the lights go out, the ceiling becomes opaque, and you see high above in the rafters a swinging corpse or body, which then the laughter comes. So let's play that.
Senses quieting metamorphosis. Is this haunted room actually stretching? Or is it your imagination?
What's really interesting here is
this
that everything
dismaying
looks on
observation.
the top half of
This
each
chamber has no
I think I only see it on this
windows
one.
and
But
no
then as you
door.
stretch, the things that bad things that are about to happen sort of appear and appear and appear by the time they're all into the vertical. Things aren't going well for that person anymore.
Of course, there's always my way.
All right. So luckily a door opens, you're not trapped in this space anymore. And the guests embark into a queue toward the Doom Buggy itself, the lineup there, which is a 2 to 3 person seater, best of 2, tight of 3, depending on the size of your kid, I guess. And the ride passes through the entire mansion and ends with an escape from an upstairs window. Key highlights are the library, a ghost playing a piano, a hallway with doors trying to be opened from the inside, someone trying to escape from a coffin, Madame Leota inside a crystal ball, dancing ghosts in the ballroom, the ghost bride looking for her next husband, and the cemetery as you escape out the back of the house. So I took the opportunity to video the ride. I'm going to show you that. It's about 6 minutes. I'll chat a little bit through it. That way we don't get too lost in it. But this was, for me, one of the most fun things. And this video was taken at one of the last rides out on this Friday night at 11 o'clock or so, right as the park was closing. So I wrote about 6 times before I didn't get something I liked enough. So here we go. Chad, if you will.
All right.
So this is like live video from an investigation, right?
Right. Yeah.
Yeah. And then as you start out, you're noticing the artwork along the walls, and actually back in the queue for the Doom Buggies, there are other portraits of other past owners as well. I want you to pay attention to the last one that's going to show here. The lovely young woman with kind of a nice facial. I didn't hold it up far enough. I'm sorry. Her face turns from like young and kind of beautiful to a vampire and Irish features. Next year we pass through. I'm just getting bombed by a mosquito in my house. This is great. Pass through the library. Whereas ghostwriters here, looking at the floor, you can see someone's playing the piano, but you can't see him above. Another piece of Disney magic. Good old fun there. And then as you turn here, it gets very dark. But the wallpaper starts to appear. Here are the stairs throughout the house. All have ghost prints all through them. The impression that you're not alone, you're never alone. Anywhere in the house, there are 999 ghosts available there. So, and there's always room for one more. Here are the eyes on the walls on both sides of the car. Kind of creepy. Never really identify what they are. Here, as you turn the bend, because this gentleman is standing there with this bag, and then the stretching hallway goes back. And Chad, you commented on this previously. There's a mirror back at the end that helps make the hallway look like it goes on forever. If you look at it very closely, you'll tell there's a crack down the middle of it, but it's so large and so heavy where it is, it can't be replaced. So that's kind of interesting. Here we have the coffin with the corpse trying to exit, and then all the doors, various doors. Of course, they have knockers on them too, so they're making a lot of noise. They're all rattling. The one near the end on the right-hand side is bowing so much you can actually see the light coming from behind. It's a really cool effect. Here they're trying to show you that time doesn't matter there. The clock's just spinning backwards. This is one of my very favorite parts of the ride. This is Madame Leota, and I'll talk about her a little bit more in a minute once we get out of the ride, and some of the other characters you can pass here. But this seance is happening. She's inside a crystal ball, floating in the mid-table above, parlor table, and all of her interactions are based. What? I'm getting bombed by a mosquito.
Okay.
We're gonna make it. All of his interactions have, touch points that have cues that make sounds happen and engage with them. And as we slide around the bend, here is the ballroom with the party of ghosts occurring. What's really interesting here, as we pan a little bit more to the left, you'll find that there's an organ player, and the organ itself is a prop that was used in 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea on the Nautilus. The very same organ that was repurposed here to the mansion. So now this is where it gets creepy, right? You're now in the attic. We're climbing the house as we go, and the pictures that are here and on the left-hand side are portraits of husbands, and the husband and the bride who we're about to encounter, who has unfortunately killed all her husbands and is looking for her next one. I recall as a kid, I was there many moons ago. That was a mannequin that was just barely moving. Now they're graphically moving on it. It's really sharp and cool. Now we're out on the balcony, looking for a way out of the house completely. We're about to pivot and jump off.
Did I just see some
the
orbs?
most exhilarating part of the ride now, because you lean back, you're like, oh.
Did I see some orbs there, Jamie?
You saw a lot of orbs, yeah, definitely a lot of orbs. And as you drop in, here's the caretaker, kind of looking overwhelmed by what's going on. And then the cemetery that's in the back of the house. And there is so much going on here. I can't even tell you all of it. There's going to be a band playing. There's interactions between the ghosts. There's eventually you see some ghosts riding bicycles by. Some, of course, are popping up out of things, and some are trying to escape from crypts and tombs. We've got the guys here who are going to sing in a second. There's a dog as well, the dog ghost. And there's some things that change occasionally. We found earlier in the week that there were 4 cats sitting on top of a casket, and then they were not there later in the week. So they do make some adjustments to the ride occasionally, which I thought was pretty cool. And it's not just a static thing, it's always the same. You'll notice the ghost host has left us a little bit. He's about to step back in because he was needed elsewhere. And of course the cars point you toward the things that are to the scene. And these guys, the 3 ghosts at the end are hitchhikers. And then as you come around, here's another use of the Pepper's ghost imagery, where they're in your car with you, and they're trying to steal part of you, to take the heat. And it's just the poof. And one last ghost to say, you're welcome to stay. Yeah, Jim, it really was in the time anyway. And with the upgrades they've been able to do through the years, it really has been fun. So let's talk about the key areas that we just walked through, or rode through. Um, the big one for me, and it's always
Jamie,
been my
before you
favorite.
go,
Oh, yeah.
yeah, Amanda's comment here.
Okay. So you're the one who watched it. That's it. There's the one. Okay, now we know. It's funny how we have favorite things like that. I saw it and I was like, not my best thing. Not because I have a different image of what this is supposed to be.
Mm-hmm.
But the newest version that was a year or so ago was actually really good. So, and there's nothing wrong with the old version either, man. I'm not picking on you. But, it's just one of those things where a lot of times things that are not really movies, like video games happen all the time. Like we make movies out of video games and they generally suck, right? Because we played that game, we've invested our time in it, we've become part of that game because of all the passion we had for it, and then it just doesn't meet our expectations because it doesn't visually transition that way. So the mansion for me is that kind of thing. I would be okay if it was never a movie about it, but I'll take them because they're fun. And the house is meant to be fun as well. So let's do a little backstory on the rest of what we saw there. We'll hold here on this slide for a little while. First of all, go back to Madame Leota. So the backstory for her. Originally a witch, and she lived in Salem, Massachusetts, but left when the witch trials began. She relocated to the Hudson River Valley in New York and opened a small shop called Memento Mori, Curios and Curiosities. And there is a shop with the very same name of Memento Mori right at the end of the ride. You don't exit through the gift shop, unfortunately. You have to go outside, but right across off the entrance of the ride area, you run into this building. We spent a lot of time in there too. So, when she was there, she met the Gracie family, and they grew very close. And she grew very close to them, so close that she is buried in the family graveyard behind the mansion. And she is conducting the seance inside the mansion on the ride. Next slide. I'm sorry, I should have moved up a little bit here. I apologize. Next slide, and then next slide. Yes, Madame Leota. All right, so the ballroom. So the room is filled with dancing ghosts. This is created by a theatrical effect known as Pepper's Ghost, where illuminated objects are reflected onto a pane of glass, making them appear to be translucent. The illusion is named after John Henry Pepper, who created the effect. The organ being played, as I mentioned earlier, is the same as used by Captain Nemo in 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea from back in 1955 or so. Next slide.
Jamie, this is actually, we were talking about the piece of glass earlier.
Yes.
This is the one that I knew the story about.
Oh, okay.
This piece of glass is so large that it can't be replaced without taking the roof off the building.
Oh, wow. That makes sense. Okay.
And when I forget at one point, but they found a crack in this, and they were like, how are we going to replace this piece of glass? Because Disney, everything is perfect, right?
Yep.
So they looked at it, and somebody's like, I'll be right back. And they went somewhere, and they came back with $1 plastic spider, and they put it on top of the crack. And because of the way it had cracked, it looked like a spider web. So by putting that spider on top of it, they saved hundreds of thousands of dollars.
Oh, absolutely.
In replacing this glass. They have a spare piece of glass. They just have no way of getting it in the ride.
Wow.
So it's little things like that,
That's even more Disney magic, right?
Exactly. So
here,
sorry to sideline you there.
Yeah. Well, here, what's really interesting to me is that even the lower right-hand image is ghosts that are up on the chandelier that's at the top of the room. I mean, there's so much happening in the scene. Like they're spinning, they're dancing, there's people sitting at the table. I mean, it's so much of the active party that it's hard to realize that they're not really there,
Right.
And I've seen images of this room. It is to scale. It's a human scale size room. So it's not like there's some miniature action or something, it's like a forced perspective thing. It's a real big ballroom, and there's just cool stuff happening.
Yep.
Okay, let's go to the next slide. So the Ghost Bride, like I said, she's changed through the years, and this is probably the fifth iteration, since the ride opened. So it's not like she changes all the time, but now she's more of a hologrammish projection versus the physical mannequin type use that they had for the most part through the years. Her name is Constance Hatchaway, and as you saw in the ride, there are portraits of her and her former husbands along the walls. Each met an untimely and violent end. Constance was in search of wealth and married for money, killing each after her wedding. Constance is one of the portraits in the stretching room as well, sitting on her most recently deceased husband's headstone. Next slide. So, the cemetery and the hitchhiking ghosts. Excuse me. Near the end of the ride, we pass through the family graveyard where there are lots of spirits and all kinds of things going on. Dancing, ghosts, some playing instruments, others riding bikes, singing, all kinds of fun stuff. Here, the ghost host warns you to beware of hitchhiking ghosts, and we meet three fellows who appear to be looking to thumb a ride, the lower right-hand corner. They also then will appear in your doom buggy as you ride out of the area to show you that they were serious. So there's some other things.
Somebody forgot to do a separation.
This is where you want to cut ties. Absolutely. It's funny. The thing about it is, it is a cool thing. Depending on the season that you're there, we had the opportunity many years ago to be there at Halloween season, and that is like September through November for them. Right up against Christmas, they bump it all in there. But there's more active things going on in the Halloween season there than there are normally. The house is it's kind of a creepy building up on the hill, but they illuminate it with purple and orange lights, and they have fog running across the whole property. There is a live version of the ghost host walking the yard, so it's kind of creepier. But these guys are actually in the what's it called, the photo package, the Disney Magic package, I think they call it, where you bump up and get an extra, and then they take a picture outside of the mansion. You're just kind of standing there, like hold your thumb out, and the ghost appear in front of you. So they're part of your entourage at that point. So there's some really cool things they can do now, which really adds to the atmosphere and the experience of the ride. So there's some other things I want to note. Let's go to the next slide. As you walk up outside the mansion, there are many, many tombstones and crypts along the path to the mansion's front door. You have to take the regular queue line for this to get the full experience. If you get a lightning pass, which means you kind of get through quickly, you bypass most of this. You see a little bit, like you'll see Madame Leota's tomb with her headstone, which is on the bottom left, and most of the rest of it you miss. And again, at Halloween, they're going to have more things happening. A lot of these are interactive, like the heads move, the eyes turn. There's some crypts. The actual crypts are rattling, like somebody's trying to get out. Lots of sounds, of course, too, like grunts and groans like ghosts would have. It's pretty cool. And then next slide. Well, it's ominous during the day. The mansion looks completely different at night. Like I mentioned, it's got the extra illumination. The facade is also often illuminated in purple light, and there is no shortage of fog drifting over the front yard, especially in the Halloween season. And with Disney, again, that starts in early September, so might be ahead of our curve, perhaps, but they take full advantage of it. And if you have a chance to get there, then they have some really awesome trick-or-treat nights where everybody gets candy regardless, and there is no shortage of candy at Disney. So that's the extra suitcase. Like, seriously, the extra suitcase, especially if you go with two teenagers. I think we still have some for like 4 years ago. Yeah. So fun facts and odd things. Almost done. The early plans would have had maids and butlers walking guests through the mansion, telling them the tragic tale of the sea captain and his bride. Okay. And that is not the ghost bride at that point. Okay. Original plans encompassed a museum of the weird that we talked about in the beginning that would showcase strange creatures and add interactive illusions to the tour. And the Haunted Mansion is the most popular ride for guests to spread the ashes of their loved ones. Yeah. People leave things in this ride on purpose. Mm-hmm. Every year they pull out shoes, like boxes of shoes, T-shirts, clothing, articles of clothing, trinket goods. People just leave them in the places that they feel is their favorite area, perhaps, or they connect with. It's quite weird, but it's a thing.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah.
If you ever hear a Disney cast member talking about Code A, that means that they've found ashes somewhere, and like you said, most of the time it is in this ride. But Code A is they've discovered human remains,
Wow.
cremains. So,
and that adds to the mystique, right, of the ride. Well, I appreciate that, Amanda. But if your wishes are to have your ashes spread on the beach or out to the ocean or something, why not here? If this is what you love, why not? I mean, obviously there's perhaps some health and safety reasons why not.
right.
Same with out in the public places too. You throw the ashes up in the air, everybody breathes them in. There's a movie about that somewhere, one of the comedies along the way. But everybody starts coughing, like, why? What's going on? But it's part of the mystique of the ride.
Mm-hmm.
So let's go to the next slide. There's actually a pet cemetery here as well. And it's at the exit. It's on the way out. You're well outside the ride at this point. And there is a tribute you see on the right-hand side to Mr. Toad, placed in 1998 when the Mr. Toad's Wild Ride ride was closed permanently. So good Mr. Toad still hanging around. Next slide. So the hitchhiking ghosts, we'll come back to them. They have names. As they were people in life, of course, they had names then. They now do as well. Ezra is the tall gentleman with the bowler hat. Gus is the short guy with the ball and chain. And Phineas is carrying the carpet bag. Next slide. So what you hear when you leave is that there are 999 happy haunts in the mansion, but there's always room for one more. So take that to heart, perhaps. This is the ghost host, the illustration of him, and he is our guide. So I'll close with this thought. This has been my favorite ride since I was 8 years old. Why was an 8-year-old allowed to ride this, you ask? Well, it was the 1970s and nobody cared, first of all. We didn't have seatbelts either, and we had lead paint and, blah, blah, blah. And
we drank out of the hose and,
filterless cigarettes. And, when your adult person had too much to drink, you got to steer the car. There's a lot of things, dude. We're lucky to be alive, right?
Mm-hmm.
But it was something for me that was super awesome, and I remembered it vividly being 8, and I've been back a couple times since, and it still has not lost its charm for me. And I think that's fantastic, and it goes back to the comment I made earlier about how the adults become kids again when they come to the parks. This ride has been there my entire life, and that's fantastic. But I want to share this. So part of our package of being at Disney, we stayed at a resort, which meant we had access to a few things that normal folks, I'll call normal ticket holders, didn't have. And one of them is access to extended hours, which we got to take advantage of on Wednesday evenings. That was the day that it was. So the park closes at 11. The Magic Kingdom closes at 11. And we got to stay till 1 a.m. It doesn't seem like a long time, right? Because there's a lot of other people there still. But the kids had a queue to get on the Neutron ride, and we had to wait and wait and wait. That didn't turn up until almost 11 o'clock. So it's on a far other end in Tomorrowland on the other end of the park. They got in, they got through. Space Mountain is right next to it, another classic ride. No queue line there at all. They just ran through. Coming back, we hit the Seven Dwarves Mine Ride, the Snow White ride. That's another roller coaster. And by that point, they were just roller coastered out. And I said, well, how about the mansion? Why not? It's just a little ways over. So it's about 12:55 by now. We get to the ride, and there is nobody there. There's one staff member monitoring the entrance, but there's nobody. Walk through the queue, still not seeing another person. Got into the lobby. There's nobody there. Watched the transformation of the portrait. Stepped into one of the stretching rooms. Nobody in there as well. So there's 4 of us, Stefani and the kids. We have a butler with us because there has to be an adult in the room, like the staffer in the room. We watch the whole thing happen. He's over there when it starts. When it ends, he's standing right behind us. It scares the crap out of us on purpose. It's probably his, passive aggressive way of saying, "Hey, dudes, it's time to leave. Like, you shouldn't even be here now. Like, we're the last riders, and we're in the place by ourselves.
Right.
Each of us gets our own doom buggy."
Oh, wow.
It was that, nothing else. I mean, usually you walk in and the queue takes you down a ways and comes back, and then you finally get in there's a moving sidewalk and you have to wait for a car. People are getting off, all that stuff. Nothing. We walked in, the queue was cut, so you just walked in and we're right on.
Right.
It was surreal. And the really cool thing about it is, the ride getting off at a couple minutes after 1 a.m., there's nobody in the park anymore. It's just us. And there's some staff around to make sure that we go the right way.
Right.
But it is so weird to be there that late at night because, it's calm, it's quiet.
Mm-hmm.
It's hustle and bustle and loud and everything's happening. And
it
was really weird. And then the really interesting thing is we came around toward the Hall of Presidents, a full-size owl came swooping down right over top of us and landed on one of the alcoves of one of the houses and just sat there and looked at us. And then we had another an ibis was walking along on the sidewalk and just looked at us like, "Hey, what are you doing here?" It's a very large bird, so we figured that was probably about the time we should go before anything else comes out. But having the joint to yourself was really super awesome.
And I will say Disney is really good about that. When I was down last year, when the school trip, the boys and I had a late night there, and the park closed at 1. But if you were in line, at 1 o'clock, it didn't, like, I think we were on Jungle Cruise, and it didn't matter how many people were in line. They closed the end of the line to not let any more on, but everybody in line got to go.
Yes, that was a very true thing, and that's with these newer rides, there is no lightning lane or Genie Pluses that you can buy to get in the queue faster. So you're in a lottery kind of thing, waiting for you have a lot number,
right?
And the same thing can apply if you're in that queue. They will keep you. They will, as long as you're still in the park, of course. You'll have your time, and if you're there and it's well after hours, you're still going to get to ride. Yeah. That is. I mean, that's the least they can do, I guess. It's a nicety. It really is. Mm-hmm. And that's kind of what I realized too. Once we walked in at like a couple minutes to midnight or till 1, they were going to let us ride because we were already in there. So yeah. Now, is the Haunted Mansion haunted? No, it's not.
Maybe.
Yeah. Is it a fun way to enjoy some air conditioning and get a slight scare? Absolutely. So I won't even ask if you think it is or not. But in a world where rides are getting bigger and faster with all kinds of things happening that you are too sensory overloaded to absorb, I will take this old school classic each and every time. Mm-hmm. So,
but that being said, there's a lot going on in there. You can overload on what's going on in that ride too.
You can. You're absolutely right, and that's the nice thing about how simple yet complex it is. I mean, I mentioned the ballroom. There's so much things moving and happening. And most people don't even look up at the chandelier and realize there's ghosts hanging off of it. Like there, because you're looking down at the event that's happening.
Right.
The same thing with the long hallway with the doors. They're used to. This is where I'm disappointed. They changed the ride a little bit. There used to be a floating candelabra in the hallway, make it look like somebody was walking towards you, holding this. But that's no more, unfortunately. Okay. But even just to keep looking around, and the car turns you in so many angles that it's hard to catch all of it all the time as well.
So I'm going to stop you for a second and point out David's comment here that there are stories from employees that include ghosts and moving objects. So
I had a book called The Boundless Realm. It was written by a past employee who worked at the ride for probably 10 years in his 20s and early 30s. I've loaned it to one of our teammates, and I don't know who has it, so it's around. And if I can get it back, I'll share it with you guys too. But it talks about that very thing, and it talks about the stuff that people leave behind, and it talks about the fanaticism that many riders have, just being overwhelmed when they get there because they have such a high expectation for the ride. They're so excited, that it kind of just they get a little weird. So, we all have our things, right? Like we all like something. So that makes sense. Speaking of things that you like, I'm not one to generally buy souvenirs, but I could not pass on this.
Serpents and spiders, hail of a rat, call in the spirits wherever they're at. Rat on a tape. It's time to respond. Send us a message from somewhere beyond. Goblins and ghoulies from last Halloween. Awaken the spirits with your tambourine. Shrieking and crying, toads in a pan. Let there be music from regions beyond. Wither and witches, wherever you dwell, give us a hint by ringing the bell.
And I apologize to say this because I didn't capture it, but the face and the voice of Madame Leota is one of the Imagineers who helped design the ride, and it has been in play ever since the 1960s as the voice and the face of Madame Leota. So I'm told that there is a way to manipulate this bad boy so that fog actually comes out of it somehow too. But it's a YouTube video, and I have not had any time since getting home to figure that out. So she might make an appearance in another episode somewhere when I figure it out. So, that's pretty cool too. Dave, you're a fountain of knowledge. Love it.
So Jamie, am I correct in understanding that you got to hear that seance over and over and over a few times when there was a breakdown?
Yeah, well, not really a breakdown. The ride does stop once in a while, and we did stop right in the middle of it, of the area. So I'm happier to stop there than I am like when you're escaping and you're inverted backwards a little bit, like just sitting there, I'd rather be stopped somewhere where there's action happening around us. We did stop as well facing the cemetery. I'm sorry, not the cemetery, the coffin where someone's trying to escape with hands out. That wasn't as nearly as fun as stopping in front of Madame Leota, but yeah, happened 2 times of the 6, I think, times I rode. So, usually it's somebody having issues getting on or off the ride. Nothing actually broke to the point where we had to get out of the cars and walk through the house, which I would have loved to get it back to the behind the scenes walk through. That would be super cool, but maybe next time. There were some other things that broke that her family was on, so that they had to get out of cars and
I did hear that.
Yeah, the train, the mine train thing. It wasn't that bad, but some other folks were stuck really far out on the ride, so it literally broke. So, alas.
Very cool. Well, it sounds like you had fun. I'm glad you
did. Thank you. I did. And I thought of you guys the whole time. I swear, this was a research project. It wasn't me having fun and just enjoying Disney. I was focused.
Okay.
I'm bringing you this information about the mansion. So, I hope you enjoyed it as much as I did. And if you have not yet been there, please find a way. It is well worth it. All right.
Cool.
Police have hazmat suits. Well, yeah. The thing is, it's so dark, and this is really what's interesting to me. Like, if somebody's going to do this, they can sneakily do it. There's no seatbelt to the ride. There's a lap bar.
But if I remember correctly, there are a lot of infrared cameras.
I did notice that, yes,
throughout the ride.
But again, if you're going to be sneaky, you can be sneaky, right?
Right.
So I find it, especially as ashes scatter, it's kind of just. Right. I don't know if anybody would dump them all at once. That seems weird,
but it is illegal to do that. Just putting that out there.
Yes, I totally appreciate that. Absolutely.
So, you will not go back to Disney World if you get caught doing that.
That's true.
So
That is it.
so cool.
All right. Well,
thank you for your research, Jamie. Nice job.
thank you.
I learned a lot. So
Not paranormal, at least not entirely, but still a whole lot of fun and something I'm thinking about when's the next time we can get there. So maybe a while.
Yep.
So,
well,
I
know there's going to be another.
I saw a guy wearing a most expensive day ever T-shirt, and I'm like, yeah, it's the most expensive week ever. So, I I fell asleep on that ride, Jim. So, no,
I don't know. There's some
forgot how
freaky
long
things
it
on
is.
that ride, though.
It's a Small World is an incredibly long ride. Like it's longer than I feel like it should be.
Mhm.
And it's very relaxing, and that song just kind of gets in your head, and you just start, you tune it out. Next thing you know, I was, head bobbing, nodding it off on it.
Mhm.
But it was a must ride. It's a must ride. It's like everything else. You just got to do it.
Yep.
There's certain things. It takes you back.
Yeah. So.
Yes, it is. I reminded, I got to say this quickly. I reminded everybody that there is a Simpsons episode where they don't call out the It's a Small World by name because, of course, they get sued. But there's something, and I forget the exact details, but like kids are abducted, small children are abducted and taken to a ride like this where they are the characters on the ride, and you can't see it in the in the boat, but they all have balls and chains or something attached to them that they can't escape. And they're forced to stand there and do the song, and it's a variation of "It's a Small World." And I think about that every time. I'm like, is that one moving? So they are all dolls, no people. I double checked.
Oop.
All right. Well, hey, while we're here, right? Let's get out of this. So,
so like I said,
Jim knows what I mean. It was a pretty good one. All right, go ahead, Chad. Sorry.
So, like I said, we had an investigation this past weekend for April. We have one coming up in May on May 18th. You will notice that we did, unfortunately, drop the Red Mill from our repertoire right now.
Yeah.
We have a family, our Jotnick's family member is going through some health stuff, and unfortunately, now is not the time to do that investigation. So we will reschedule it in the future. I know Jim's looking forward to us rescheduling it, and we want to do that.
Oh, we all are. Yeah, we're all looking forward to that.
But family health is more important than other things. So we send our best wishes out to that situation.
Yeah.
But we will be at the brewery on the 18th, the 1st of June, the 29th of June, once a month after that through July, August, and September. That's all that's up for the bookings right now. We'll hopefully that'll get posted. Rest of those will get posted soon.
Yep.
We do have a couple other things that are not public
other things.
Other things. We've got one this Saturday, Jamie. I don't want to go into detail unless you want to share a little bit about it, but
I don't yet anyway. We are going to, but I can say this: we're going to investigate a place in Columbia, PA, that has never been investigated before, and it has some sad history. So there's been at least a death or two in the building. I know of one confirmed, and I believe a second one which I'm working on. And then we'll have run of most of the property. Unfortunately, there's going to be some spaces we can't go, but it's one of those mixed use buildings where there's still some residents, but we're not going in people's apartments. But the bulk of the building we'll get to, and I'll try to work to get some clearance afterwards to discuss what we did and what we found. But it's pretty exciting.
Very cool.
Hopefully, more to come real quick after that.
And then I know we're doing a small group investigation to White Hill.
Yep. Coming up on the 4th of May, I think, right?
4th of May, yep.
A couple weeks out, yep.
And then
sorry.
Following up on that, the following weekend, whatever that would be, the 11th of May, maybe.
Yeah.
Is going to be the Selma Mansion Holistic Fair and then the same day is the White Hill Mansion Paracon.
Yep.
So, definitely want to check those things out. I'm going to be hitting those two events. I'm going to have a busy paranormal couple of weeks because of the event the thing this weekend, the 4th, and I'm going to hit those. It's a good time of year. Things are starting to get back up and running, and we appreciate that. I'm looking forward to seeing Kyle. He was on earlier, but really looking forward to seeing Kyle. Some of our Jotniks, New Jersey people that we haven't seen for a while.
Yeah.
Our Jotniks Eclipse team has a couple things scheduled. I don't remember exactly what they're doing, but I know they've got 2 or 3 investigations coming up. So
I think there's a Selma event that they're doing, an investigation at Selma as well, beyond that public event that's coming up on the 11th.
Did you catch when I asked Steve about the Hanover Tavern that we can do a private investigation there?
I did. I could not miss that. Come on.
So,
yes, please. I'll go.
So yeah, we've got to get that one lined up. That'll be a lot of fun.
Yeah, just somebody drive Dave this time. Him and Southern Virginia don't get along well in vehicles. So
this is Eastern Virginia, so maybe that'll
I
be
know,
better.
but still, it's there. Yeah.
So,
Jim, it's good to see you. Thanks, Brendan. We'll see you soon.
So we've got a lot of stuff coming up. I'm excited. I'm looking forward to getting back into some of this, doing some things.
It's time.
And I know you're talking about scheduling Fort Mifflin. So
I know it's got to figure out when, and that's going to be late summer until we figure that out. But yeah, it's definitely on the horizon as well. It's time to really get serious. After I was waiting to get out of this trip to get some time to after this week and catching up with other things. I think we'll sit down and figure out a date.
Okay.
So yeah, September probably.
Sounds good. Then things coming up.
Yeah.
We are going to try something next week. So we will either be live from Booby's Brewery or technology will completely fail and we will not be on the air. One or the other.
It can't be either. It's going to be one or the other, right? It can't be both. We can only be there for a while now. I don't think there's going to be an issue with it. I really don't. I have a lot of confidence in your ability to pull off the tech stuff.
So we'll see. But I'm looking forward to that. Hoping to maybe get some cameras in some other rooms so we can do the show, but then be looking in on some other. We'll see.
Yeah.
But looking forward to it. We'll see if there's anybody available to talk to us. Maybe not. Not holding our breath, but we'll see. Then after that, the Accomack Inn, which I'm not very familiar with. I know it's local-ish, but
it's on the west shore of the Susquehanna here. It's York County.
okay.
Right, just a little bit, the smidge north of Wrightsville.
Okay.
But a historic establishment.
Okay.
Got some history.
And then I'm going to dig into the Fulton Theater. I know a lot of stories having worked there for years, not getting much input from the Fulton management themselves, but there's enough out there that I can dig into it and talk to a bunch of people I know that I can really have some good information about that. And then the Halderman Mansion, which I've never investigated and unfortunately won't be able to, but you've spent a lot of time there.
I did. I have. And we as a team have. That was our original home location where we were leading investigations to help raise funds to renovate the property. It's a forever old original house and property here in Lancaster County, PA, that has had a ton of history through the years and quite a lot of interesting habitants as well. So we'll try to do justice to it on May 14th.
All right. It's hard to believe we're talking about May already, Jamie.
Well, it's mid-April, dude.
Mm-hmm.
Where we are.
So,
hey man, it's good to see you. Take care, friend. Catch up soon.
And then here's where we are. The normal ones that you've seen up there, but there's a new handle down there at the very bottom.
Yeah, look at that.
Kirsten has converted her Twitch account to a Jotnik's account. So we're going to be streaming this on Tuesday nights there. But she is also planning on streaming some investigations as she's out on them. I know she's going to the Selma one of the ones that she's going with Eclipse on. They're planning on doing some live streaming from. So they were also going to White Hill. That's the other one.
Ah, that's right.
So
Okay.
they're doing White Hill. So, but we want to thank Kirsten for taking care of that, getting that set up and up and running. We appreciate that.
Yep. Best teammate ever.
So
sorry, Chad.
It's all right. I know, Larry.
She's cooler than both of us. Let's just be honest.
This is true. Yeah.
It's all good. I'm okay with that. I really am.
So anyway, Jamie, thanks again for researching and a great job on this tonight. But yeah, anything else that you want to throw out there before we call it a night?
I got nothing unless you want to hear Madame Leota one more time.
No, that's okay. I do want to thank all our guests for watching, those who watched us tonight and sat through the ride with us, and anybody who's going to watch in the future. We appreciate you coming out.
Absolutely.
If you have any questions or comments or show ideas, drop us a line. We gave you the places to reach out to us. We appreciate it. So,
absolutely. Thanks, y'all. Can't do it without you. Thank you.
All right. Good night.